When it comes to Algorand's native token called Algo, if it were to reach the price of $5 for whatever reason in a hypothetical make-believe scenario, that is currently around a 24x from here. But what are my thoughts on that? Well, again, even though nothing I say is financial advice, and even though I'm not telling you to do anything, here's my thoughts on it. It just maybe doesn't seem like too ridiculous to me, maybe the idea of $5, because even though some people may be thinking, okay, around a 24x, what are you talking about? Well, at that point, market cap, considering current circulating supply, would be around 44 billion, which, it may sound kind of massive in and of itself, but in the grand scheme of things, it just doesn't seem like overly too massive in my perspective. We've seen Shiba Inu reach around 40 billion back in 2021, and we've even seen BNB reach a new all-time high during this cycle. And even if we take a look at what it achieved back in 2021, at one point, even years ago at that point, right, market cap was, for a moment in time, over 100 billion. And right now, there's supposedly over 600 million crypto owners, allegedly more than ever before in history, whereas compared to back then, in the peak of the 2021 bull run, there was around 300 million crypto owners. This market cap, to me, I don't know if it sounds that ridiculous, but only time will tell. Now, some people may tell me as well that, you know what, there's more competition right now. Sure, Algorand did pretty okay back in 2021. It became very popular that year, and of course there was a pullback, and we haven't kind of seen that same sort of, I would say, vibe when it comes to the 2021 bull run. But it makes sense, though. I don't think we've seen altcoin season during the cycle, despite seeing some moments of brilliance when it comes to Algorand's native token called Algo. But besides that, just to me, yeah, sure, there's more competition right now when compared to before. But then at the same time, how many layer 1 blockchains that popped up are actually better than Algorand? I don't know too many of that, right? Because the way I view it is that, yeah, sure, Algorand, it was around years ago, but right now, there's not that many projects that I think fundamentally are actually better than that. You know what I mean? When it comes to, let's say, in the space of meme coins, there's like very unique and special meme coins now when compared to back then, right? But then when it comes to the case of layer 1 blockchains, I don't think there's such a drastically new amount that are that amazing, at least when I compare it to Algorand, because, for instance, right, Algorand supposedly has an aspect of ISO 20022. Now, some people out there, when I tell them this, they don't really expect that because they often think about, these projects that have ISO 20022 as something like a Stellar or like a Ripple or something like an XDC, which, a project like that that's focused on global trade and finance and as well as the payments market, it's kind of expected we see something like that. But then Algorand, it has it for whatever reason. So that is pretty impressive in my opinion. And if I take a look at what is that even all about, right? Why is ISO 20022 oftentimes something that people, care about when it comes to a project, at least having an aspect of that? It's because that right there, again, ISO 20022, it's currently being used by many financial institutions from all around the world for something called inter-organizational data exchange. And again, for a project to really say they're kind of being focused on the payments and global trade and finance market, a lot of people oftentimes like to say that, hey, it needs to have an aspect of that. But when it comes to Algorand, it doesn't really have that sort of reputation of a project that is very heavily focused on payments or global trade and finance, right? So I find that pretty interesting and pretty unique. Not to mention, when it comes to Algorand, it is supposedly the technology of choice, right, for over 2,000 global organizations. Again, allegedly being the technology of choice for over 2,000 global organizations. Not for 10, not for 200, not for 500, allegedly over 2,000. That right there I think is very impressive. Many other projects out there, just getting one is already very impressive. Over 10 is already like very mind-blowing in some cases, right? This is over 2,000. So I think that's pretty interesting. Not to mention, Algorand is supposedly carbon neutral, so that is very impressive in my opinion. Not to mention as well, I get it, Algorand, maybe it doesn't have the biggest fan base, maybe it doesn't have the most popularity when it comes to it, right? But when I see Algo, it has amazing listings. It's still pretty massive as of right now. If I take a look at, for instance, the market cap of Algo currently, it's currently around 1.7 billion. So it's nearly 2 billion, still holding up pretty strong, even though the price chart hasn't been necessarily looking the best as of late, but it's still holding up pretty strong. Granted, Shiba Inu and Dogecoin has a way bigger market cap than this, but you know what? It's still pretty impressive nonetheless. at least in my perspective. Now, when I take a look at Algorand as well, sometimes people like to tell me, like, why would you care about this? There's many layer 1 blockchains. And again, I just want to harp back to the point I mentioned earlier in the video. There's many layer 1 blockchains. I totally understand that. But I just like Algorand because I haven't really seen that much that are that much better than it, I would say, fundamentally speaking. And when it comes to, let's say, just an analogy I would use, right? For instance, there's many car brands out there, but is there only like Toyota? No, there's Nissan, there's Rivian. I mean, there's a bunch of car brands, right? So the way I view it is that, yeah, sure, when it comes to layer 1 blockchains, there's a lot, but I think some enterprises, just some individuals in general, they may have their own preferences, right? They may like a certain blockchain over the other. Who knows? So this is why I think it's not only just one thing and then the rest don't really do anything. Like, for instance, yeah, sure, Ethereum, it's massive as a layer 1 blockchain, right? And naturally, some people may think like, oh, then that's it. But then no, there's Solana, right? There's also Algorand. There's also Avalanche. There's also something like, for instance, in the case of, we see how popular BNB is overall. So I just kind of don't think it's just one thing and then the rest don't really do anything. Maybe there's going to be a market leader, like what we do see as of right now, generally speaking, when it comes to these layer 1 blockchains, people do often think about Ethereum, but then there's also others too. And again, Algo is not doing that bad at around a $1.7 billion market cap in my perspective. Now, again, $5 is around a 24x from here, and some people may be thinking, that's not like the best hypothetical upside out there of all time if it were to maybe even happen, and I'll agree with that, because even though I think that's pretty substantial maybe in the grand scheme of things in my perspective, and I can't speak on anyone's behalf, but it's not going to be the best. Why is that? I think it's because Algo, of course, it does not have the smallest market cap out there. It's well over $1 billion. But then at the same time, if Ethereum, let's say, went to 10 grand, that's less than a 3x from here, and let's take a look at BNB. BNB right now, right? The price is around 1,000. Is that doing over a 20x in the next 5 months? I don't know about that, Like, that's just so massive at that point. This is just my perspective. Like, even just over a 10x for BNB in the next 5 months, even I don't know about that. But besides that as well, all I'm going to do is just stay patient, because that's the only thing I can do, actually. I cannot control the market anyway. I cannot demand this to happen or that to happen. Like, oftentimes people like to tell me, why don't you pull up a price chart? No matter what I do on a price chart, like, look, the market's not going to care about that. Like, it's not going to make me know what's going to happen exactly at what time and all this. No, it's not going to make me be able to know that, at least personally, just in my case, right? So what can I do instead? Personally, I'm just dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting, and that's about it. I'm just waiting for a moment in time in which, let's say, we do even see an altcoin season during this cycle, because that's the only thing I can do. I'm just waiting for a moment in time in which it does something, so then maybe if it's a positive move, hopefully, it's kind of like going along with the ride, right? But then, what only time will tell doesn't mean it will happen. I'll have to wait and see, but I do believe in projects that I'm a fan of, and some people like to tell me, why don't you only talk about it when it's doing good? Then that means I don't really have conviction, right? Because if I'm only talking about something when it's doing good, that means I like it doing good. I don't really like the project. You know what I mean? So then when it comes to Algorand, I can't just, every time it doesn't do good, I just not want to talk about it, because then what? That means I don't really believe in it. Now, this is just my personal take on this, but I'm not just gonna deviate and be like, oh, I don't care about a project anymore every single time it does bad. If that was the case, I could have just, easily gave up on Algorand a long time ago, but I didn't do that. And I'm just still staying patient. I've been holding for quite a while now, so I'll just wait and see. But at the end of the day, all I can do is stay patient. And I want to say thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I hope you all have a nice day. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch you all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.